another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. I am your host, Roddykat, and you can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can also find me at News Nerds Need on Twitter. You can also find me at CBCaps on Instagram. After all this time, that still makes me smile for some stupid reason. I don't know why. And with me tonight, providing the sound effects as he normally tends to do, is one agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram.
What's up, everybody?
Where Brooklyn at? Where Brooklyn at? Where Brooklyn at?
And with us tonight, we have a special treat for all you Comic Book Chronicles fans. Friend of the show, miracle worker, all around dope ass dude. One, Matt Wayne 97 on Twitter.
What? Where's my theme music?
I didn't have a chance to cue any up. Sorry.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me again on the show. Really excited to be here.
You know, you are always welcome here, sir. Always. And so tonight we're especially glad to have you for the occasion, at which we will get to in a minute, but when I will get to after I finish the intros with one PCN_Dirt, who is not here. You can find him at PCN_Dirt on Twitter. You can also find him at popculturenetwork.com, popculturenet on Twitter, and all his umbrella sites they're in. And sorry, you're right. Haha. Also on the Vine Alternative Byte, BYTE, under the term Comic Views No Vowels. And not with us tonight is the Osiris of this ish. One, Tim, DOGD98 on Twitter. CB Cron on Twitter, which is the Comic Book Chronicles Twitter account. The Click Nation on Twitter, and theclicknation.com. That's DKLIQNATION. And also, of course, Comic Book Resources, where he's over there writing his face off. You can find this here podcast on CSPN.us.
Do it today.
Right, the Coast of the Podcast Network, folks. You can also find this here podcast on your podcast perusal place of choice, that being whether Google Play, Apple iTunes, let me turn on this fan, Spotify, and the Coastal of the Podcast Network's SoundCloud page. All right, folks. Tonight, we are here talking about, this is pretty much I said last week in the notes, a seminal event in comic history, and this is damn sure one of them. We are going to be talking about tonight, after we do the news, one, Crisis on Infinite Earths from 1985.
Right, we're covering the first 6 issues, so you do have the opportunity to catch up relatively quickly on your reading. Note that these issues are a little longer than we might be, or what we might have become used to in recent years. So we're doing this in 2 parts. So this episode is issues 1 through 6.
Yes, some would say this is part 1 of the 2-part event.
Exactly.
Which it probably will be when it comes to time you see this in audio form. So there you go. But first, before we get into that, we are going to do the news like we tend to do about this time while I finish putting out this tweet. A little behind the scenes during the show is always a wonderful thing. And we're going to start off with the cinematic news, as we tend to do, with Blam. First off, Thor: Love and Thunder director answers if Beta Ray Bill will show up. And that answer is, he says on Instagram, I love Beta Ray Bill. I'd love to have him in the film, but I just don't know right now. Things are a little up in the air. So that makes things a little bit murky coming up. And it goes on to say that the director has voiced his love for the character in the past, but, you know, it might be out of his hands.
Got.
So, everybody, because and there's been there was that whole talk about when Christian Bale was rumored to be in it, which we come to find out he's going to be in it. That whether he was going to be playing Bill or someone else, I'm still thinking it's Balder. But who knows where all of that goes? Or I think he may even be a villain. I can't remember how that turned up. But regardless, that's that. Next up.
Righto. So next up, the star of the Shang-Chi movie, Simu Liu, has revealed his birthday wish. So the film star has been posting some updates since production of the film was put on hold due to COVID-19. He took to Instagram to share his birthday wish, which is for people to donate to hospitals during the pandemic. In fact, if you prove you've donated to a healthcare organization, the Marvel star will send you a personal thank you.
That's really nice.
Indeed. Let's see. Next up. Make sure these levels are straight, because apparently things. Avengers In Game was the final film in Don Cheadle's Marvel contract, apparently. So, yeah. So Don Cheadle says his original contract with Marvel Cinematic Universe is up, but this article postulates, does that mean his time as War Machine is over? He's discussing how he became part of the MCU with the AV Club. Cheeto explained, I got a call from an agent, and they said, hey, I want you to connect with these Marvel guys. We all know he took over from that other dude. We don't have to say his name, as Rhodey.
I was about to say, all you have to say is, yeah, man.
So, yeah, and then it was like, they want to talk to you off your part. The actor then inadvertently revealed Endgame was the end of his original contract as he continued. I don't think it was Feige. I don't know who was on the phone, but they said, hey, this is the role, we want you to do it, 6-picture deal. I was like, oh, okay. But I'm trying to do the math. I'm like, that's like 11 or 12 years. I'm not sure. Apparently, since he did it, then we've already seen him on film. We know how that turns out.
Exactly. It's funny that this comes up and you start to count the appearances and you realize that 6 appearances goes by, actually went by fairly quickly.
Yep, for sure. And yeah, mostly everybody's, or at least specifically the main folks, or contracts have been up around the same time or a similar around time.
Right.
I think there's a couple other people that's got a little bit, but like Sebastian Stan, I think he's probably got a couple more shots in him. Outside of that, and a couple other people. So yeah.
Right. I think they signed him onto one of the longer deals.
Right. He was like 9, I think.
Right.
Like that. But yeah. So.
What else does he have to do?
Rumor is he'll probably be in Black Panther 2.
No. I'm just saying outside of the Marvel.
Right. He's being facetious.
I mean, hey, we don't know what the dude's doing. We also, you know what? No, we'll get to that in a minute, because actually you could get a kick out of something I watched recently that has nothing to do with him, mind you, but somebody else that we've frequently talked about. Next up, though.
Next up, Avengers Endgame actor Mark Ruffalo wants to see a standalone Hulk film that pairs him up with Wolverine, and not for the first time. Speaking to Variety, Ruffalo said he would love to see a solo Hulk film flesh out the backstory of his character and pit him against Wolverine. Now that Disney has the character rights for Wolverine and the X-Men, Ruffalo thinks the time is right. Maybe Hulk and Wolverine could hook up, and not in the colloquial sense. Oh no! It's funny. One of the things that I got, one of the Marvel Legends that I got from that was issued last year was the 80th anniversary one with first appearance Wolverine and the Hulk. So I can't wait to unveil that on a future episode, probably next week or the week after.
Yeah. Excuse me. Avengers star, speaking of Mark Ruffalo, tried to talk Marvel out of casting him, apparently. So he was talking to Variety, and Ruffalo said that he was apprehensive to step in the Hulk's giant shoes. He says, I quote, I did try to talk to him out of casting me, and I can see him actually doing that. I don't know if I'm the right guy. I've never done anything like this, he quotes. And between Josh Whedon and Robert Downey Jr., they were pretty convincing that I could do it. And again, as we know, he clearly did it. So... But yeah, he's also states that it was kind of nerves that kind of got the better of him when he was doing it. But hey, it worked out. Next up.
All right, next up, director Sam Raimi, who helmed the original Spider-Man movie trilogy, has confirmed that he will direct Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, following reports from early February that he was in talks. He spoke to Coming Soon about a reference he previously made to Strange in Spider-Man 2, in which the character Ted Hoffman rattles off some suggestions for naming Dr. Octopus, the movie's villain, including Doctor Strange.
That's great news.
I know, right? It's going to be weird because Ted Raimi is going to show up.
That's right. I forgot about that.
And we already know J.K. Simmons is already different J.K. It is already back in the Spider-Verse.
J.K. Rowling appearing in a Marvel movie and what havoc that would cause amongst fandom.
Man, people would explode. That would be some funny mess, though. I wouldn't be surprised if they wouldn't try. It's like, hey, just sneak on this for, this part is a version of Agatha Harkness or something. I don't know.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
But next up, Guardians of the Galaxy news. Rocket plays a quote-unquote big part in Volume 3. So, okay, yeah. So this came from James Gunn on Twitter after a user asked if Rocket's origin will be addressed in the upcoming MCU film. And he says, Gunn says, I'll just say Rocket is a big part of what's happening in the future, and a lot of this stuff, like the scars we're about to see on his back, sets up what I've been planning for Rocket all along, he wrote. So that could be a maybe.
His comic book origin is a mess. Don't even bother. I think even Scotty Young, who loved the character, did a run at the end. He's just like,
right.
It doesn't matter what your origin is. You're awesome.
Right, and
that's a short version.
Yeah, and they've been trying to smooth some of that out with the recent Guardians. Well, I say smooth out, but they've been working with it. I'll say, not necessarily smooth it out, but yeah.
Right, at least touching upon it.
Yes.
Without really delving into the nitty gritty and describing all the parts that would be a little confusing. But yeah, as Roddykat mentioned in the recent issues of the latest Guardians relaunch, they touch upon that. So I'll be interested to see if they incorporate that into the movies.
No more Half-World. We're done. Half-World. We're done.
Yep, we're still there in the comics, sir. So it's probably gonna happen.
Right. All right.
Next up.
What's next?
What's next?
I'll tell you. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. brings back a character from the Agent Carter TV show in the first look for season 7. I am referring to Agent Sousa, played by Enver Jokaj, who never expected to play Daniel Sousa again after Agent Carter's 2-season run ended in 2016. It was revealed by Entertainment Weekly that Jokaj will guest star as Sousa in the 7th and final season of ABC's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's interesting. He actually makes an appearance in the first Avengers movie as well as a nameless NYPD cop.
Right. So, hey, things to come, I guess, at the time.
Exactly.
So next up, I don't know. I have not caught up with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so I need to do that actually. But in this exclusive Star Wars short, it's droids who save the galaxy. And sadly, it is not that 80s cartoon that some of us of a certain vintage will know and love. Great theme song, by the way. So yeah, there's a new Galaxy of Adventures short, and apparently R2, C3PO, BB-8, and I guess that one new robot that Agent 70 doesn't like so much are off on an adventure. Which looks like in some sort of forest. So I don't know if this is indoor or this is like just some roundabout. But whatever, you can go check it out for yourself when you get the chance. Next up.
All right, next up. Daisy Ridley has come out in an interview with Entertainment Weekly speaking about the poor reception that Star Wars Rise of Skywalker received. It was her third outing in the most recent Star Wars trilogy, and she essentially says that it's just been very tricky, and and I'm quoting, when you're part of something that is so filled with love and then people don't like it, everyone's entitled to not like something, but it feels like it's changed slightly. But I think in general, that's because social media and what have you. So I guess it just, there's just more ways for people to express themselves nowadays when they don't like something.
Yeah. I mean, the part of that, if I get what she's saying, is kind of not wrong because people can kind of, for better or for worse, get on social media and just do things and game the system.
Right. Point exactly.
So, yeah. But moving on, DuckTales producer details the long process of getting the Rescue Rangers in the latest episode. So they were basically.
It was awesome.
I know.
Was so good.
Oh, you've been keeping up with it?
Yeah. I just saw that episode. I didn't know they were showing up, and I knew they were showing up this season, but the way they weaved it in was awesome.
Yeah. So I have not been watching it, but and by proxy of seeing all this news here, is like, okay, I've really got to see some of this stuff because they've been they've basically kind of blended the whole universe, including apparently two that were never together in the first place, into this one thing, and that's kind of crazy. But yeah, so DuckTales producer says it's been a long road for Frank and Gomez and his crew. They've been steadily adding more and more elements of the old Disney Afternoon universe to the DuckTales show, and apparently there were some stuff that they couldn't do. Oh wait, they couldn't cross, and Chip 'n Dale was one of them. Careful viewers might have peeped the breadcrumbs leading to the acknowledgement of Chip Dale Gadget. Monterey Jack and Zimber, well, they made their grand debut this week, and the producer told the story on how it happened on Twitter. So you can check that out. And if you haven't seen the episode like me, like I have, from what I've seen of that show, it's pretty good. So you might want to check it out if you can.
Highly recommended.
There you go. You got the girls watching it?
No. They're more Mickey Mouse people, but eventually they will.
In due
Exactly.
time.
Yeah.
All right, next up.
All right, next up, there is a report that the Animaniacs Revival on Hulu is going to reunite the original cast and reportedly eyes a fall premiere. According to Flickering Myth, Rob Paulson, Jess Harnell, and Tress MacNeille are set to return for Hulu's Revival as Yakko, Wacko, and Dot, respectively. The characters of Pinky and the Brain are also apparently back to do what they try to do every night, which is try to take over the world. This information is corroborated by a previous tweet from the Animaniacast, which features a photo of the cast provided by Brain's original voice actor, Maurice LaMarche. So, you know what? That's pretty cool.
You know what's really interesting about this is that obviously a lot of productions are shut down right now, but animation is not.
Right.
So you've got all these streaming channels, all the cable channels. They're trying to get productions up and running, and animation is the only one they can do right now. I mean, everyone's trying to line up content, but voice actors working from home, animators just work from their studios, and they're working hard right now on shows.
Yeah, which is great to see. It was like it's good that this is one place where it's not hindered as much by what's going on. So if at all, so that's great. And I'm curious. Well, actually, I don't know. I had to check out his podcast because I know Rob Paulson does a podcast.
Right. He stopped doing it for a while.
Oh, okay.
But he did have a podcast that featured primarily voice actors and talking about their process and talking about their careers. I was just going to add before we move on that it's interesting, like I see more and more advertisements for better than podcast quality microphones popping up in all of my feeds, because I think just speaking of voice talent recording their parts at home, I think that with everyone working from home and trying to increase the quality of their Zoom calls or their Skype calls, you're going to see more and more people upgrading their equipment at home, and a lot more people maybe not getting a new computer, but maybe upgrading their microphones so that they sound better on audio.
Right. Yeah, like not everybody has got a mixer and an actual relatively studio quality mic like like some of us doing for no apparent reason at all. Like these folks are actually using it for intended purposes. So
Right.
and I think they've probably been doing that before this happened, but yeah, there are more and more that are definitely getting into like better quality stuff for those reasons. And I've also seen a couple of other like YouTube channels that do like that usually have some content on the anime front that are doing that, and it was like, well, you can definitely tell there's a difference. Anyway, next up, Man of Steel's Michael Shannon agrees with Superman killing Zod. So I'm not sure what brought this up, but apparently, while appearing on Cinema Blend's Real Blend podcast, Michael Shannon was asked if he thought, if he thought Zod's death at Superman's hand was needless, and he says, "No, I didn't. I didn't think there was any other way to end it. Really." The actor replied, "I mean, Zod says it's either me or you. I'm not gonna let you survive. I will kill you unless you kill me, and that seems sufficiently Greek to me. You know." So. In his eyes, he's like, hey, that's how it goes down.
Bendis would have figured it out.
And the movie would have been a whole nother 30 minutes long with needless dialogue. Yeah. But you're right, though, I guess. Move right along.
Next up, Henry Cavill is spending his quarantine painting Warhammer miniatures. I don't know why I just did reverberate.
Oh wait, wait, you missed one actually.
Did I?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm sorry. Man of Steel star would love to shoot Snyder cuts Martian Manhunters.
And you're cutting out.
That's what I get. Unmuting my.
That news, the Warhammer news, is so awesome.
Yeah. So basically, while Agent 70 fixes what's going on, if he can fix it. Say what?
I said if I can.
There we go. I think you got it.
All right.
But yeah, Harry Lennox, the actor who you've known him, you've seen him. If you don't know him, you've seen him in a lot of stuff. He's been in The Matrix. He's been in Man of Steel. He's been in a whole bunch of stuff. He's basically said he'd love to portray Martian Manhunter in Justice League Snyder Cut, which, man, I wish they would stop with the doggone Snyder Cut, for God's sake. But he just hopes that the film gets seen regardless. He just says, I would love to do it on the Comic Book Central podcast. I just hope it will be seen. I really do. So.
Sure, it's not going to make the movie any better.
No, it really won't. I don't understand it. I just don't understand it. Anyway, so back to the story. Back to the story prior to that. Yeah, Henry Cavill is spending his quarantine time painting Warhammer miniatures, and the crowd goes absolutely bonkers when they saw this. Like the internet kind of blew up for a little bit. So yeah, Henry Cavill was on. I think it was on Instagram, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he's at an Instagram post where he was shown painting little figures, and it obviously got around, quite largely that that he was doing this. Which I think it has been said before that he was like, we knew he was into The Witcher before he even got the part. So we knew he was doing stuff like that, and I think it has been said he was into like Warhammer stuff prior to that. But I guess at the time it didn't really resonate as it does now.
I didn't open the story. What type of Warhammer?
It says Total War Warhammer 2. He says he's also wait a minute. I don't know that much about Warhammer, so I don't know if it's 40K or
exactly. I was about to say. I'm assuming it's the fantasy.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense with his age. He's from London. He's from the UK. And that's where Games Workshop started is based. It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
If he's a fan, he's going to be a fan of that.
Right. But still, like I said, I know people who are into Warhammer stuff are like just geeking right about now, assuming whether they like him or not.
It's hard.
A big up for them.
Have you tried painting those? Those are really hard.
No.
Oh yeah.
I would not touch it.
I've only done a few miniatures, and they are very difficult. But I know people that's like their meditation is doing those, and just doing them in bulk, you know? So
more power to those people.
Yep. Alrighty. Next up, this is a big spoiler alert for people who have not yet watched DC Universe's Harley Quinn. So I'm just going to ring the spoiler bell real quick. DC Universe's Harley Quinn reveals a major Batman villain is gay. So season 2 of DC Universe's Harley Quinn has found Joker's ex and her team of misfits holed up in Gotham Mall, struggling with how the city should ideally be run. It's been deemed a no man's land by the U.S. government, so when the power starts to fail at the lair, the team decides to raid Riddler U. Gotham's University has been turned into Riddler's base, one that still has power running. So Harley's crew wants to figure out how and steal whatever battery he's using. As the plan unfolds, though, a secret is revealed as one of Batman's major villains turns out to be gay, Clayface.
Mm-hmm. So, okay.
All right. That's fine.
Yeah. I haven't watched this show either, which I guess I don't know. Are they like full running, like 30-minute shows? I don't know. Anybody know?
My DC Universe free membership expired, so I have not been on top of what's happening in on the streaming, on the site.
Got it. I think also I want to say Batgirl also coming up, but I think we talked about last week. Either way, so here's the news that I was trying to get, that I was alluding to earlier, and Agent 70 and even Matt, you may want to check this out. I don't know. Code 8 on Netflix. Watch Robbie Amell and Stephen Amell's gritty sci-fi thriller. So apparently the Amell cousins, you know them as one part of Firestorm and the Green Arrow from the Arrowverse. You might have heard about it. I don't know. Got together and put out a movie on Kickstarter, if I'm not mistaken. And it's a movie that started as a short from back in 2016, as I found out, starring them and some other people. And now has blossomed into this movie, which is now on Netflix for anybody to watch. And I watched this the other night, and it's actually not bad. It's also kind of funny because you see Stephen Amell show up, and you're thinking Green Arrow, but now he's not Green Arrow, but he's just some dude that has powers, and that's not so much of a spoiler, but it's just kind of funny to see. There's a couple other people that are also in the movie, including one Sung Kang.
Han.
Yep. So that's kind of funny, and his part in it is as I was joking with the person I was watching it with, I was like, yeah, this must be where he went after he quote unquote died in the Fast and Furious movies.
Oh no.
But and also a few people might not know, but I can't remember the guy's name, but he's from Dark Matter. He was one of the stars on Dark Matter, and I can't remember his name right about now, but he was also in it and a part. But yeah, if you get a chance to check it out, do so. It's actually not a bad movie. It's basically, so there's a little bit of, just to get just a little bit, like the world, it's basically a sci-fi world where, okay, people have powers, but they're being discriminated against. You may have heard of something like this in the trail, but it's kind of grounded in the real world. There's like robot cops also. There's real cops, but there's also robot cops that are used to kind of help patrol because of, the number of powered people that are around. And the movie kind of turns into a slight heist movie at a particular time, and then there's some more stuff that I won't necessarily get into, but that'll give the story a little bit more away. But it was actually not badly done, so I'm like, yeah, I'd say it's worth a watch. It's not even that long either, but it's pretty good.
Is it better than X-Men Dark Phoenix?
That's not saying much. You do know that, right?
Okay. I'm just trying to gauge, like.
It would, weirdly enough, it looks like they have a little bit of a budget. Like, they don't go crazy with the effects, but at the same time, it's pretty well done. I thought for whatever budget they had, it's actually pretty well done. So,
all right.
Yeah. But yeah, that's that. Next up,
Next up, Netflix has inked a first look deal with publisher Boom Studios. It gives Netflix access to the largest library of controlled comic book IP outside of Marvel and DC. That's pretty cool.
I read that as their PR person at Boom did a really good job, or someone at Netflix did a really good job of writing that.
Oh,
that's a big claim. Yeah. That's a big claim that they're making.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it's interesting. The one property that jumps out at me is Mouse Guard, because we know of the attempt to bring an animated movie to life prior to this. So maybe there's hope yet.
It's funny you should mention that, because I did see a article from, I believe it was CBR actually, saying that came out like right after this, saying, you know, what 9 properties of Boom that could be adapted to, and of course Mouse Guard was front and center.
So, I mean, a live action Lumberjanes would be awesome.
Mm-hmm. I believe that was one of the other ones too. So yeah, like they got stuff. It's just a matter of whether anything will show out of this deal. We'll see, I guess. Next up, though, in Evangelion's rumored AIDS PSA has finally been unearthed. So apparently, there was a. So most folks know the anime Neon Genesis Evangelion if you're an anime fan, and its various steps and missteps in in dubbing and whatnot. But apparently, when ADV released a box set of Evangelion anime with a commentary, fans were quick to latch on to a bit of trivia teased by Shinji Ikari, voice actor Spike Spencer, and head of ADV Matt Greenfield. Apparently, Spencer and fellow Evangelion voice actor Tiffany Grant, the original voice of Asuka, had both recorded an AIDS public service announcement shortly after finishing Evangelion. The rumored PSA was never aired and was considered lost until now. So somebody dug it up, and I guess it's out there somewhere, possibly on YouTube more than likely. And apparently, yes, because it is linked in this article. So if you're a fan of Eva and you hadn't seen that, go check it out.
Cool.
And with that, we move over to the comic book news. We start off with a little bit of.
Let's say, pardon me, folks. I was getting my Duolingo lesson in before my 70 some odd day streak expired. So you literally probably, those of you watching on video saw me sneak one of my AirPods in so that I could get a lesson in very quickly. So I apologize, folks. But we start off the comic book news with some sad news. Caricaturist and longtime Mad artist Mort Drucker, Mad Magazine artist Mort Drucker, has died at the age of 91, as reported by the New York Times. No cause of death was given. However, he is said to have died at his home in Woodbury, New York. So anyone who grew up at least perusing Mad magazines is familiar with Mort Drucker's caricaturist art.
Yes, and I know Dick DiPartolo's still floating around, and he's got the podcast and he's on Twitter and whatnot. I meant to actually go see what he said about it, because I think he's probably one of the still few remaining Mad folks that are still around. So that's kind of crazy. But next up, Todd McFarlane calls for unity, crossovers, and digital to combat coronavirus comics downturn. So, in a wide-ranging interview with Forbes, Image Comics co-creator, president, and still fan favorite writer, and that is the author of this article saying that Todd McFarlane has broken what he was largely has been a quiet front amongst comic industry. Why am I not having problems reading? What is going on? And breaks with vocal comic book retailers over a controversial issue. Asks how the industry should respond to the near shutdown Diamond suspension. That's okay. That's just bad wording. Of direct market distribution due to coronavirus has fraught. McFarlane does not hold back. He says, and I quote, "I think the industry needs a consistent message. Whatever that message is, right or wrong, we need to be consistent, even if we have to adjust it. But we really need to speak with one voice, not 4 or 5 different publishers running 4 or 5 different programs and methodologies. It just ends up confusing the retailers and the customers." And then he goes on to say, if they put me in charge, and no one wants that, I understand. Here's what I'd do. I'd take Image, Dark Horse, Marvel, and DC, the top 90% of the market, and make a message from the four of us as a unified front. One message. And he just goes on from there. I believe he has also said something, because I saw this part on Twitter saying that he wouldn't mind having like a Spawn Spider-Man crossover and a couple other crossovers. So some of that kind of seems a little self-serving also, but just kind of to bring the community together, to bring the industry together. So
I mean, it's a way to start the conversation. So,
exactly.
I mean, at least in that regard, it's appreciated.
Yes.
All right. Speaking of comic pros, starting, or at least continuing the conversation on how to sustain the comic book industry, comic pros have banded together to highlight open comic book stores. A group of comic book creators have organized under the banner Comic Industry Collective to compile a list of all the currently active comic shops in the United States and abroad, currently listing 460 stores. Comic Industry Collective is also seeking crowdsourced information about shops still operating during the COVID-19 pandemic, and I guess they're trying to put together a one-stop shop, a one-stop place to do your shopping.
Right. So
Awesome.
Good deal. Yeah. And still on news on that front, over 100 comic creators join forces to raise money for comic retailers. Under the hashtag Creators for Comics, over 100 creators are coming together to raise money to help comic book retailers suffering from lost business due to coronavirus. Hashtag Creators for Comics will use a Twitter auction format to raise money for the book industry charitable foundation BNC, with auctions running from April 15th through April 20th. And
I'm
there's a
literally
gang of
bidding
names.
right now. I'm literally on Twitter right now bidding and going through it.
Who would you, or if you can give that, if you can give that
You'll find me
information,
on
who you
Twitter.
bidding on?
I don't think I'm gonna win. I've been competing for the Phil Jimenez piece.
Oh, okay.
Someone actually bought something from me, so I'm gonna use that money to hopefully bid on that, and then Nar Chang, you can be in one of his books, so I bid on that, and something really like a Greg Pak package that he put up. But there's a lot of good stuff here at the prints or signed books or scripts. There's all types of genres. There's people will show up at your podcast, or you can. I was thinking of you, right? I was thinking of you, Leah, the writer, for Marauders or Dawn of X, Leah
Williams.
Leah Williams.
Yeah.
She is. She will spend an hour with you on Animal Crossing, showing you her island.
Nice.
I thought of you. Right.
I appreciate that. Yes, and I have to go, and I probably will be checking on my island after this podcast. So this is a good deal. I did not know she was actually. I'm lying. I did know she was on Animal Crossing because I think I've seen some tweets of hers. But yeah, so the auction effort is being spearheaded by creators Kami Garcia, Brian Michael Bendis, Gwenda Bond, Sam Humphries, and Phil Jimenez. And there's a bunch of names, including a lot of people in there: Jason Aaron, Mark Guggenheim, Kelly Zucanic, Mark Wolfman, Jeff Johns, Joe Hill, Scott Snyder, a bunch of people. Tom King, G. Willow Wilson, Greg Rucka, the aforementioned Greg Pak, and a whole bunch of other people that are doing things on the. So you check the Twitter, you will see the hashtag, and you will see all of the efforts on that.
Mark Guggenheim will bring you to the set. He also has scripts too, but he will bring you a set of a show any show he produces.
Okay, so yeah, which means basically whatever's left of the Arrowverse shows. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of dope. Actually, I wouldn't mind that one, but but yeah, go check that out. Move right along.
Next up, like a superhero team recruitment montage, Artists Brian Hitch and Ivan Rice have joined in DC publisher / chief creative officer Jim Lee's sketch drive, aiming to draw and auction 60 sketches over 60 days to benefit comic book stores reeling from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Hitch tweeted that he's joining Jim Lee on his sketch odyssey, and Jim Lee himself announced Ivan Rice's involvement on his personal Instagram page.
So cool. And also in that news, our Adam donates Wolverine sketch for Jim Lee's charity auction.
The price on that went sky high immediately.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah. Matter of fact, holy cow! I'm just looking at if you're watching the video, you can see it right now. It went for $11,211.
Yeah, and even on the Jim Lee ones, he's doing 60 of them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Death and the Sandman one went to $10,000 in like a couple hours.
Jeez, I did see that one earlier today. That one is elaborate.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, the entire endless right on the bottom.
Excuse me.
I'm not even familiar with that, and God help us if we ever decide to do Comic Book Chronicles on on Sandman stuff. But I just saw just to see all of those characters all in one sketch, you have to assume that that's going to cost beaucoup bucks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what Jim Lee's doing is really cool. If you win, one, all these sketches will become covers of DC Comics.
Oh, nice.
2, if you win, you pick the next character.
Right.
Ooh. I can see that going a couple of different ways. But that's it's for a great cause, so it's it's going to be good all the way around. So, but yeah, there's been some really dope things that have come out of it. I mean, crisis aside, there's some good things happening in the industry that's trying to help things out, and that's awesome. And continuing on.
Next up, Ironhead Studio, which has made costumes for numerous films featuring Marvel and DC characters, is turning its expertise to making masks to cope with the COVID-19 outbreak. The design house announced in a Facebook post that it is crafting handmade cloth masks to be sold to the public while it is closed during this period. Cool.
Yeah, really. Yeah, I've seen some other people in a smaller, a smaller fair doing that for people they know and stuff like that. I'm like, that's pretty good. Even some kind of hilarious alcohol related ones. But yeah. But good deal. Let's see. Next up, Donny Cates buys an entire comic shop's pull list for customers. That's kind of baller. Venom writer Donny Cates agreed to purchase the entirety of Austin, Texas comic retailer Austin Books and Comics' outstanding customer pull list, which have been placed on hold due to COVID-19. Here's Austin Books and Comics' message to their customers from their Facebook page, urging them to come pick up their now paid-for comic book list and spend the money that would have put in comics on some more products from the store. I won't go into the thing, but they're basically saying, hey, somebody bought your pull. Donny Cates bought y'all's pull list. Come get some stuff and help us out. The TLDR. So,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, really. Next up.
All right, next up, Diamond Comic Distributors founder Steve Geppi delivered a letter earlier this week on Monday announcing how it intends to make payments to its vendors, which include comic book publishers, after last week announcing it was holding scheduled payments. In the letter, the Diamond owner said that the plans currently are to pay 25% of the weekly amount due under the contract terms, with the remainder being paid out along a new timetable set out. This is one of those things where a quarter of a loaf, to paraphrase, a quarter of a loaf is better than no loaf at all.
True. Comics still selling well in book trade despite coronavirus pandemic. With the direct market effectively shuttered down due to Diamond Comic Distributors shutdown and several state mandates, the book trade has become the de facto primary distribution channel for comic book publishers, including Marvel, DC, Boom Studios, and Viz Media. ICV2's Milton Grep has organized a report of book trade sales in the wake of coronavirus pandemic. According to the figures from BookScan, March's 2020 sales for the top 20 kids graphic novel titles, quote unquote, were actually up substantially over March 2019, and that of the top 20 adult graphic novels were, quote unquote, similar to those from this point last year. And then the article kind of goes into as a how and possibly why this is happening, which I won't have to get into, but you can read it for yourself. Next.
All right. ComicCon International San Diego is evaluating any financial liability that a decision to cancel this year's convention would bring before they make a decision whether to move forward as planned, according to San Diego Tourism Authority CEO Joe Terzi. According to the newspaper, the Tourism Authority asked more than 50 hotels that are part of the San Diego Comic-Con hotel block for assurances that any cancellation fees or penalties for this year's event be waived as they work through this challenging process. And apparently, a majority of the hotels reportedly agreed to their request.
Right, because it's either, at this point, it's like either, okay, are we going to continue to put this on and risk things getting worse, or are we going to bite the bullet, and bite the bullet and soak up the cost of canceling this thing.
Right.
So, I figure like San Diego's probably big enough to where they could probably eat it. I don't know. So, it is a thing. Who knows?
It is one of the biggest events there. Mm-hmm. So, it will hit the economy really hard.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Like, even on that scale, it's like, yeah, I'm not saying that that's not going to be a large cost to them or anyone in that, in that equation, but, that's not an undertaking you want to have to take lightly. Next up, 10 geeky Zoom backgrounds to make your meeting more interesting. If you noticed at the beginning of the show, you might have seen one of them on my side. But yeah, so here's an article. We've seen a similar article from DC Comics, and this PC Mag decided to put together a list of those. And actually, if you go back to News Days, you can kind of go a few days, you can kind of see under that hashtag Zoom virtual background. But anyway, so you see some from DC Comics, Marvel, Star Trek, The Good Place, Betty Boop, RuPaul's Drag Race, Fox Animation. All of these have been on Twitter in the past couple of months, but you can find a whole bunch of them in all one sweet place, including Pee-wee's Playhouse, which I did not see earlier, which I'm probably going to download.
No kidding. You didn't see that one? Okay.
No, I didn't see that one. Mm.
Interesting. I was about to say, just as a quick add-on, I know that Marvel, the Marvel Twitter handle, put out 4 more backgrounds today that were character specific. So take a look at that on Marvel's Twitter feed.
Any Power Pack or Stingray?
Nobody but you wants them. Let's be honest.
All right. Next up, former DC co-publisher Dan DiDio has spoken about the issues with the New 52, as well as the biggest problem with the DC Rebirth Initiative. During a drink and draw live stream alongside Marvel editor-in-chief Joe Quesada, DiDio discussed where he felt the New 52 went wrong. According to him, not as much time was spent on the second year of the New 52 as the first. That's probably his biggest regret, is making things happen too quickly sometimes. So yeah, I can concur.
Yeah, and it's amazing the things you can say when you're not with the company anymore. So yeah, just saying.
I can't wait to watch that. Sounds fascinating.
Yeah, I hadn't checked that out myself, but I definitely plan to. So, sure to be quite enlightening. DC didn't want Loeb and Lee's Hush to be part of the main Batman series. So, while Batman's Hush has gone to be one of the character's most popular storylines, former DC Comics co-publisher Dan DiDio says the company originally viewed the tale as one to be kept away from its Batman comics series. During the same Drink and Draw live stream, which featured several famed comics artists. Didio spoke regarding the Hush storyline written by Jeff Loeb and artist Jim Lee. Internally at DC, there wasn't a lot of excitement for Hush. Didio said they wanted to do that book originally like they did all the Loeb sale books. They wanted to make it a prestige off to the side. And he revealed it was Lee who convinced DC to make Hush a part of the main Batman series. And he says, "I remember Jim to this day going, no, I want to be on the line. I want to be numbering the book." So, and there you go. Apparently that ended up happening. I have still never read Hush. So
Really?
yeah,
That's a great. It's a great series.
I mean there's a lot of Batman, to be honest. My DC knowledge is like sliced. There's not a whole lot that I've read classically. So I have it. Matter of fact, I do have it because I have it on Comixology, but I just never read it. So anyway,
All
next
right.
up.
Speaking of Batman, this year marks the 25th anniversary of Batman the Animated Series. Finale, actually. The show does live on in the new Batman the Adventures continued digital first comic series. Series co-creator Paul Dini and longtime show writer producer Alan Burnett lead the way, joined by artist Ty Templeton, who drew some previous comics based on the cartoon. This week, DC released the second chapter of Batman the Adventures Continue, with the Caped Crusader fighting Lex Luthor, but another even more menacing DC villain lurking in the shadows. So apparently, including, in addition to Lex Luthor, Brainiac, and possibly the Batman Who Laughs. Oh, no.
Yeah.
My goodness.
I know fans of TS is like, wait, what? Hold on. Why? What's going on there? Why is that happening?
True.
So moving right along, Kevin Eastman hosting online hangout to celebrate Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1's anniversary. I want to say this may be this is today. So at the time of this recording, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles co-creator Kevin Eastman will be hosting a Facebook Live event with fans later to celebrate the 36th anniversary of the very first issue's release. So up from the 36 chambers comes Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. 36 years to the day. So happy anniversary today, April 16th.
Wow, happy anniversary. I just wanted to note, if you have not yet seen the Netflix documentary series, The Toys That Made Us episode with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that features both Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird and their trials and tribulations, please go watch it. It is phenomenal.
That thing in the Toys That Made Us is just generally interesting to folks like us and comic and toy collectors. So check that out for sure. Marvel has no plans to release new digital comics on April 15th.
Duh.
Yeah, I know, right? So CBR has learned that Marvel Comics will not release any new comic book titles digitally on April 15th. By the way, happy tax day. Post-tax day, I guess. But this follows previous weeks that the publisher has declined to release comics digitally. Boo. Following Diamond Comics distributors, blah, 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 yakety blackety. Y'all know what's going on at this point. But Dan Buckley did release a statement on it, saying that they weren't going to do it. So, hey, here we are, folks. Next.
Exactly. So the new Warriors relaunch was supposed to come out this week as solicited, but since that hasn't happened, in its stead, the variants for that first issue have trickled out ahead of its eventual release. So in addition to the main cover by R.B. Silva, there are variants by series artists Luciano Vecchio, Declan Shalvey, Mark Bagley, and a hidden gem variant by Mark Bagley.
I'm getting my Mark Bagley's. I love that series. One of my favorite series. I actually collect those pages too.
Nice. Cool. So if you're watching the video, you can see scrolling through the covers and some other stuff. I'm slightly interested in that series. I'm not sure how I feel about some of those new people. Or at least I should say the art for them, I guess. But and the names, another thing about it. But outside of that, hey, I'm gonna check it out. whenever it happens to happen. Next up, Black Knight and Avengers returns to the Savage Land in Empire tie-in. So, with the unified Kree-Skrull alliance looming on Earth's doorstep, Captain America knows he needs reinforcements, and thus the call is sent out and answered in Empire's Avengers. Why did it have to be the Black Knight? That is me.
Well, it's because of Eternals, probably. They're trying to get ahead of that.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. In this upcoming 3-issue series, writers Jim Zub and artist Carlos Magno lead a 3-pronged approach that includes classic heroes such as Scarlet Witch, Vision, Wonder Woman. Wait, what?
Wonder Woman.
It says it in an article. And Mockingbird.
Wonder Man. It must be Wonder Man.
That must be. That has to be.
I was about to say that's autocorrect kicking into overdrive right there.
I told, damn it, Newsarama, you need editors. Oh wait, you have one. Actually, in fact, that's who wrote this. Anyway, as well as cult favorites like Quicksilver, Luke Cage, Dr. Voodoo, Khazar, Dr. Nemesis, and Black Knight. Yes, Black Knight, the 1990s leather jacket era Avengers leader. Wait, you never? Yeah. Oh well, I don't count that. I don't care.
Black Widow was actually the leader.
Right. Yeah, I know. It's like, why did they say? It was like, I remember that time, and I don't remember that being the case. I don't know what these people are doing. Anyway, so Empire Avengers 1 to 3 was solicited to arrive April 29th, and I think we can safely say that's not going to happen.
I definitely want one of those 90s style Avengers jackets. It was my favorite run.
I had fun with that run. There was some, I believe that is also the infamous affair during that run, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Yeah. So
Wait, which affair?
Black Knight and Cersei.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guess who the artist was?
Steve Epting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And guess who the writer was?
Was it
Bob,
Tom? Oh no,
Harris,
it was Bob Harris,
the editor of X-Men.
Yes.
Yep.
So yeah, that was a time, folks. Maybe no, we're not. I'm not even gonna promise that. We'll I was about to say something. I'm not promising that.
I got to tell you that whatchamacallit, the leather jacket look has made an appearance in the Marvel Legends line as well. There is in the Black Widow wave, in support of the still to be released movie, there is a gray suited, short hair Black Widow with brown jacket. And I'm like, oh, can you take the brown jacket off, please? I just wanted to see the gray, the gray suit with the black spider on the back,
right?
With the Black Widow on the back, actually. The black, it's layered in black, so But anyway,
yes.
For those of you who have access to Marvel Unlimited, like myself, who finally got on board just before they made things free, damn it, or at least a lot of things free because of the COVID-19 pandemic, you can go and look through the What If issues that chronicle some of the Avengers' What If greatest defeats across the Marvel multiverse, such as what if the Avengers had lost. See, I was just looking at this. What if the Avengers lost to Korvac? Mm-hmm. What if the Avengers lost Galactic Storm? What if the Avengers lost Atlantis Attacks? And what if the Avengers lost Civil War? So there are a multitude of these what if issues that you can peruse on Marvel Unlimited. So have fun.
Mm-hmm. I remember reading through at least the first couple of those. They weren't bad. You can get the first 2 arcs of Ta-Nehisi Coates' Black Panther run for free right now on Comixology if you are so inclined. Like the first volume collects Black Panther 2016 1 through 12, and again, free. Comixology right now. I'm not sure how long it's gonna last, but right now, at the time of this writing, at the time of this recording, April 16th, you can still do so. So go check that out if you're interested. Next up.
All right, next up, in very recent news that is welcome to my ears, in October, hopefully in October, IDW is going to celebrate the dynamic artwork of industry icon Jim Lee with the addition of Jim Lee's X-Men Artist Edition to its multiple Eisner Award-winning Artist Edition line. So it is going to include, my understanding is that it's going to include in full the pencils to best-selling comic book of all time, X-Men #1, and it's also going to include lots of pages, splash pages, and panels from his X-Men work inside this artist edition.
Mm-hmm. So if you
I've already pre-ordered.
Oh, did you? I should do that.
Well, I mean, I just tweeted Midtown Comics, said I want this.
Oh, I was about to say. I'm like, where can you pre-order that? I'll do it.
I know, right?
Just hopefully IDW doesn't go bankrupt by the time October shows up.
Jeez.
Oh man, that's a depressing thought. But yeah, so if you're keeping score for Agent Sketch 70, we now have 2 of them for him. That is this Jim Lee and that George Perez thing that's coming out in December that we have him on the hook for. And actually, I'm probably gonna get both of these myself. So who am I kidding? A scary Star Wars box and video game legends highlight the week in toys. So there's a bunch of toy news, including that Spawn thing that we talked about last week. A bunch of Final Fantasy 7 figures, some Mario stuff, that hyper real Luke Skywalker from Empire Strikes Back, which I thought was already out, but apparently it wasn't already. Apparently there's a set of VHS style playing cards that someone made, which that's actually kind of funny. And there is that, and that happened this weekend, including some other stuff. Next.
All right, so apparently Razer is selling wireless earbuds perfect for Pokemon fans. In addition to Pikachu stamped yellow buds, the set comes with a charging case shaped like a Pokeball. They'll be launching in China for roughly $120 on April 16th. I don't know. Let's see if there's any word on a U.S. release. They don't have very good battery life, according to Gizmodo, but at least the case offers up to 5 recharges. Okay.
Yeah.
Agent, I got a guy there. I got you.
You know a guy?
I got a guy.
Nice.
Nice. Not even surprising.
Not at all.
Next up, Doctor Who's newest short story gives 13 a lockdown of her own to deal with. So, a small light in these particular times for Doctor Who fans, at least, has been an outpouring of fiction from writers across the series' recent history, detailing bite-sized adventures to distract us from the realities of our own wanderings in the 4th dimension. But this week's story feels a little too real. Written by Paul Cornell, who's penned plenty of Doctor Who stories, new and old, perhaps notably adapting his old Virgin New Adventures novel Human Nature into the heartbreaking 10th Doctor Martha Jones story The Shadow Passes, sees Doctor, Yaz, Graham, and Ryan venture to the planet Calapia for a short break, except for they find themselves arriving just before a sinister death moon that arrives every 64 years, begins its journey over the planet, killing anything that is caught under the shadow, like tends to happen in Doctor Who stories. But you can go check that out at the official Doctor Who website. And next up, last but not least.
In an article that you can find on our show notes, there's a compilation of the best nerdy virtual tours that are available now, since many museums and attractions have made their tours available online. These include, you can explore these tours digitally. These include, courtesy of the BBC, the 12th Doctor's version of the time-traveling TARDIS, the Winchester Mystery House. Not sure what that is from. It's, I guess, one of the most mysterious properties in the world. Okay. You can do a virtual tour of Mars, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter at London's Warner Brothers studio, and Universal Parks are among the nerdy virtual tours that have been popping up in the wake of the pandemic.
Yep. Indeed. And one last piece of news, hot off the press from one Matt Wang here, which we did talk about earlier. Um, Chip Zdarsky is auctioning off an original erotic short story featuring you, which I will read to you centrally via Zoom, all for hashtag Creators for Comics. Bid by replying to the tweet from Zdarsky, and opening bid is $40. The auction ends at April 20th at 12 p.m. Eastern, and the winner donates directly to Beyond NC Foundation. So if you're a fan of Chip Zdarsky and his smoldering voice and his words, by all means, bid for that. I'm actually kind of curious as to how that will go, knowing him. Oh God. So yes. So now we are done with the news. We will get into the first ad read of the night.
Our first ad read of the night is for Wink, the personalized wine club. We all need some of that right now. Wink is a world of wine delivered right to your door. From rosé to cabernet to torronté, Wink has over 100 styles of wine to discover. Have you ever tried an orange wine? Wink connects you to a world of exclusive wines tailored to your tastes and delivered directly to your door. Wink delivers 4 bottles of wine to you every month with free shipping. You can pick your own bottles or let Wink choose and match to your taste. It doesn't cost a thing to become a member, and you can skip or cancel anytime. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy an exclusive discount of $20 off your first order. To place your first order with $20 off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us/WINC. That's cspn.us/WINC. Wink Wines through cspn.us. Do it today.
And with that, folks, we will speedily go into the meat to the proverbial potatoes of this here podcast tonight, and start talking about the first 6 issues of DC Comics' Crisis on Infinite Earths. Lord help us.
You know, we've talked about this series before. I just wanted to note that this is my first time ever reading this.
Mine also.
I'm sorry?
Mine also.
Okay, so we are very much going into new to us territory.
Mm-hmm. Like, I think I've read some stuff. I probably read like the first issue, and probably some bits and pieces that kind of got called into from stuff later. But yeah, never the whole thing. So
right. And Matt Wang, you mentioned earlier when you actually first read this.
Yeah, I mean, just like you guys, I didn't read it in its first run. We're all broke kids, and we knew about it. We saw the after effects, but I didn't read it till they collected it in 1998. For those of you who remember, DC did not reprint this. There were no trades, and they did this high-end remastered edition in 1998 in the slipcase, which I still have. And by the way, that first edition had a misprint in it, which they fixed. But I had a great preface from Marv Wolfman, who provided a lot of history of the series. We can talk about that later in the show.
And I also remember that George Perez did a new cover that was actually a gigantic poster. I remember buying that poster as a gift for someone who was a big DC fan that I knew in college. It was also painted over by Alex Ross, so it's a really, really beautiful piece.
It's every character that was in the Crisis book.
Right.
Oh, okay. I was thinking it might. I don't know. It's probably not this one that I'm showing on the video, which is like the first. I think this is the first issue. Yeah, the with the full front and back. But I don't think that's it. And so I'm showing the version that I have digitally, and it does come with an introduction from Marv Wolfman. I don't know if it's the same one that you're talking about though.
Yeah, that's the one. Okay. That's the one. If you're going to read this series, you should definitely spend the time reading that 2-page preface.
Mm-hmm. So let's get right on into it with issue number 1 of Crisis on Infinite Earths. that is being titled Summoning. Who wants to start this off?
Okay. I mean, all right, so it kind of starts off in the beginning, and it recounts the creation of the DC multiverse, which is their explanation for how so many different alternate realities and alternate storylines had come to pass by the time we get to the publication of this series circa 1985. So essentially it's where there should have the premise is where there should have been one universe, there were actually many, each one a replication of the first with their own separate histories, and they're separated by, we later find out, to be vibrations.
Mm-hmm. Our whole universe was in a hot dense state, and then the multiverse came, and then I'm not going to finish that song because I didn't have a chance to. But yes, so that is the thing, and I'm showing the pages. Matter of fact, the first page. So that the third panel is the one that ended up begetting the multiversity map, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah. So
it's actually the third panel, the fourth panel. We talking about the third panel where everything's kind of shooting out from the center?
Yes.
Okay.
So, I meant to look that up to see if that was actually the case, but I didn't. But yeah, so from there we kind of go into Panic in the Streets and thing.
Well, you have to explain the Panic in the Streets is this is the first song that I thought of while I was reading this. So, it's the second time we're going to be quoting the original, not the remix, Flavor in Your Ear by Craig Mack, because at the present time, a great white wall of pure antimatter. Just like Celine, this antimatter energy is stretching out across the cosmos, and it's invading the multiverse and is consuming entire galaxies, and that's how things are progressing. It's this gigantic wall of antimatter that is encroaching upon every reality, and that's how it's portrayed in these issues.
Right, and just like that song, and with the coming of that antimatter antimatter wall, you won't be around next year.
That's right.
It's eating up pretty much any and everything it touches. What we see, we get introduced to a character that we don't get named at first, but we know him to be Pariah. And the one thing you will need to know about Pariah is he's basically, one, a watcher, two, he cries a lot during this during this series. He spends probably 99.9% of this event that we've read so far, crying, whining about why he's here, the fact that he's here watching people die, which understandably, that would get a lot of people on state. I understand that.
Oh, DC's version of Silver Surfer.
Yeah, I guess kind of. Yeah, because he's kind of a mix of Silver Surfer and the Watcher, I guess. Because he kind of really can't do anything. He's just kind of there to watch and then disappear when the next thing happens. But yeah.
Whose entry is that's his power though, crying.
I mean, if you told me that for fact, I would be like, yeah, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it at all.
Oh my gosh! All right, so basically, we actually see the crime syndicate on Earth 3. That's Pariah's next stop, and we see the crime syndicate. That's the kind of the evil mirror image of the Justice League in a rare demonstration of heroism, trying to save their planet Earth 3. But even they can't do jack diddly hoo-hoo against the turning bodies into antimatter.
Exactly. And that happens, and then we get introduced to the Luthor version of Jor-El and Lois Lane as wait, was this Earth 3? I can't remember.
Yeah, it's Earth.
Yeah, Alexander Luthor and Lois Lane, who apparently, I guess Alexander Luthor in this is a hero, comes across this, and he tries to get back home to his wife Lois Lane, and they recreate that scene that that most folks of Superman's origin knows about, where he gets sent off to, or at least their child gets sent off to, not that planet, to get away from what is going on.
Exactly. It's being sent somewhere,
Yes.
and as a result of going through and having his body turned into antimatter, there is a plot twist here that comes up later on.
Indeed. Ha! Yeah, so the baby ends up on Earth 1. We meet Leela, excuse me, which you will hear me refer to as a potential Arrowverse character because there is one in there of the same name who I believe ends up doing a similar thing in the Arrowverse. We won't be talking about the Arrowverse version of Christ on Infinite Earths because I don't think any of us have seen it, but there is some allusions that we can still draw. So we meet Leela, who's working for the Monitor, and she turns into to Harbinger, and then she splits off into a whole different versions of herself to go on a recruitment drive for different heroes of different places.
Just sorry to interrupt. If you think about the context, though, in 1985, the Monitor was showing up in the monthly DC books over the course of a year. Selling weapons. He was a weapons dealer,
right?
And that he was appearing in a lot of books. So the Monitor was not a completely new character for people. Hopefully, if you're reading DC comics.
That is correct. In fact, later on in this, in one of these issues, that gets addressed because they're basically because a few characters end up saying, "Hey, yeah, we know you sold arms to us and this and that and the other," and of course there are footnotes saying that are darting back through other issues, of stuff, regular monthly issues of stuff.
Yeah. Just as a footnote, and I'm glad that Matt Wang brought this up. I think we were talking about this just before we went on the air. This is, the granddaddy of all line-wide crossovers. This, while it's not the first big event comic that would be Marvel Superhero Secret Wars, this is the first one that basically has its puts a finger on every single book, or virtually every single book in the line.
Right.
I remember specifically as a kid reading it was like a panel in an issue of New Teen Titans, like what is this, what's going on here? And this is prior to I think it's like more than a full year before the release of the series. So I had no idea what was going on because I just wasn't buying more than one or two DC books per month. So it's kind of funny to read all this and seeing what all the tie-in issues are, and seeing how, as Matt said, the Monitor had been playing a role in the DC universe for at least a year or two. And we find out later what the big plan is that the Monitor had placed in motion during this time. So it's an interesting idea to try to, and I think it's probably idiotic to try to read every single tie-in issue. There's a lot out there, but hey, there's no better time to do it than on quarantine.
Yeah,
so.
I was about to say, if you got the time in the books, run for it.
Comics were cheaper back then.
They very much were. Matter of fact, the sale price on this particular issue and all issues of this event were 75 cents a piece.
Yeah, but when we were when we were of age, the age we were when this was coming out, that was high money, man.
I mean, you're right. You are right.
Oh,
yeah. I still wish. Well, I would say I wish for those days as far as comic prices are concerned, but at the same time, it's a very different time now. And matter of fact, I will go ahead and say it is a very different time for this event. Now,
fact.
It is not as much, let's say, problematic tone as that previous event, Kree Skrull War, that we talked about last week. But there's a little bit of it there and in there. Just gonna put that out there. So anyway, Monitor goes off to various Earths recruiting folks, including King Solivar from Gorilla Soleil, Dawnstar from Legion of Superheroes, Firebrand from Earth 2, Psycho Pirate, who plays a role, as we will find out, Blue Beetle, and a few other people. Some dude from Atlantis named Arion, Firestorm. So Firestorm and Killer Frost was the part that kind of struck me, because if you know of the Arrowverse version, this kind of actually happened, where sort of kind of happened. Well, the Killer Frost. Well, so basically what happened was Psycho Pirate put a spell took control of Killer Frost's emotion, and that is his power because he can change people's emotions. So take that into effect and keep that with you, and made her fall in love with Firestorm for some strange reason. And she's all doting over him, and he's like, and Firestorm's like, "What in the world? Why are you doing this? This is crazy. Why?" but he kind of that all that gets taken care of later. But
Right.
later there is a
It's
version.
Yeah, I was about to say, go ahead, finish your thought, and I wanted to add something.
Okay, yeah, there's a version in the Arrowverse where the person who plays Killer Frost, who ends up playing Killer Frost in The Flash, who's Caitlin in The Flash, was also tied to that version of, or one of the members of Firestorm in that universe. So, but she didn't become Killer Frost until later. But that is still a thing that, you know, is a tie. Not what were you gonna say?
So before we move on to future issues, it was interesting to see being very I just have like this really surface understanding of a lot of DC history. So I had no idea that the Psycho Pirate was such an important character to this story. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of answers a question that I had about this character's use during Tom King's Batman run. And I couldn't figure out why on earth this character was proving to be, such a proving to play such a central role. And it's just kind of like this ridiculous character design and concept with a Medusa mask, which really made me think of Destiny from the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
Yes.
In the 80s. But also the name Psycho Pirate made me think of this song. Gonna get broke when I fuck you down. What you running from? It's my Disco Beta. Psycho Beta Buckdown. It's Psycho Beta Buckdown from Cypress Hill's 2001 eponymous release. Every time I see Psycho Pirate's name, I think of this song. Disco Beta. Psycho Beta Buckdown. So, it's just a wild, it's a wild character. And like I said, having no real history with the character, I'm starting to understand now why he is proven to be such a character that carries a lot of weight in DC history and in fans of DC's lore.
Right. Don't forget he was in Infinite Crisis.
All that stuff comes after, right? Exactly. Right. This is the precursor to all that stuff.
Yeah. But he appears in a lot of places.
Right. Yes, that's the progeny. Exactly. Infinite Crisis, all these like future Crisis spin-offs, those are all the progeny of this story. So it's interesting to see, where this character really took a prime, spot on stage. So, it's reading this for the first time really illuminates a lot of what comes afterwards.
Right, and if we didn't make that clear in the first part, as Madden Angel 70 just said, yeah, this is where all those crisis jokes that we have made over the years in Comic Book Chronicles have come from, because this is where it all starts, basically. So I will go ahead and say, in the course of Harbinger's recruitment drive, she gets a presence enters her as she's unaware of it that will come to bear later. During the course of the story, but she's not aware of it at first while she's doing this recruitment drive. Let's see.
One thing I would also know, for all the superheroes that were in that group of 15, they were all part of ongoing titles.
Right.
Even Arion, who's an ancestor of Aquaman, had his own title back then.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure it was around mid-'80s, yeah.
Makes sense. And as we will see during the course of this event, like pretty much anybody who had a book around the time will touch this event, including some people you wouldn't think would have anything to do with such a thing. And including a haunted Confederate tank, which that's still... We'll get to that when we get to that.
Oh, I laughed when I saw that one. We'll get there.
The ghost of Jeb Stewart, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh my gosh.
I was like,
I had to take a, I did a double take when I saw that one.
Yeah.
Haunted tank. You know about that? Come on.
No, well, see, I remember. I think, matter of fact, weirdly enough, I was playing Scribblenauts on the side, and that came up because there was a DC version of Scribblenauts, and that came up. I'm like, wow, DC's history is weird, and some of the things that kind of brought up there, like DC's whole history is just really stupid. Really
I mean,
dumb.
I was about to say it's proof that it pre-exists the 1962 Marvel history.
Right.
Well, hey, let's think about just. I know it's a tangent, but think about Marvel for a second. Where did Hellcat first appear?
True.
Yeah, you're right.
True. In in the whatchamacallit, in the romance comics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's true. Yeah, the whole Posse Patsy Walker thing. Yeah, that's true. You're right. But
You
so
want to wrap up this first issue?
yeah, so to finish this up, they basically all get attacked after the recruitment drive happens, and at the Monitor satellite, which we will come to know after Harbison brings them all together, and then the Monitor properly introduces himself to the whole group, and that's where we end this issue.
All righty. So now we're up to issue number 2, which is entitled Time and Time Again. And we open with Anthro the Cave Boy leading a herd of mammoths away from the village of the Bear Clan tribe. I'm like, who in the blue hell is that? And Anthro the Cave Boy is not exactly the brightest bulb in the pack. He sees while he's trying to steer these mammoths away, he sees a futuristic city, and when he looks up again, the image is gone. He gets knocked off the back of a mammoth by running into, watch out for that tree, kind of a Georgia the Jungle shout out right there. And the mammoth, the group of woolly mammoths that he had been trying to round up also disappears.
Right, and we will see them again later. So at first I thought, wait, is this Kamandi the last boy? But then I was like, wait, no, they can't be, because obviously there's a bunch of people around, and assuming that city is either the 30th century or Gorilla City, one or two, but we won't find out not until later. So speaking of the 30th century, we cut to the 30th century and we see Dawnstar of the Legion of Superheroes, who was investigating stuff in the first issue. People were talking about her, trying to find her, and then that's where the woolly mammoths come in into the 30th century. Then they disappear as the Legion tries to herd them off. Then Brainiac 5 picks up the Animator wave, coming towards Earth. Then we cut to Earth 1, where the Joker tries to, basically, as I said, the Joker tries his hand as a movie mogul until the Batman comes in and stops him.
Wow, talk about a classic rendition of the Joker here, both in art and writing.
Yeah, really.
Definitely not Heath Ledger or Joaquin Phoenix Joker here, folks.
Who was the main Batman artist at this time, in this era, in the mid '80s?
I want to say Jim Aparo.
That sounds about right. I mean, because Neil Adams was this, like, it's a very Neil Adams look, but he was in the '70s, right?
Right. And Jim Aparo, unbeknownst to myself at the time, he was definitely not aping, but definitely drawing in the style of Neil Adams. So it's, this is definitely sort of the House Batman style for a long time.
So during the course of this altercation, the Flash, looking worse for wear, and also a footnote to the Flash 350, just happens to appear and asks for some help. The Joker gets away, as that famous song would say. And Batman tries to help, but then the Flash disappears. Then we cut to the Monitor, where he explains. The Monitor explains it all, as also, unlike Clarissa, explains it all to the folks assembled. And we also get the title page here, or the title thing. They're like, we don't know what's going on. I don't know. I think this is when they say, well, all right, we're gonna do, like, I think Earth 2 Superman? I believe that's Earth 2 Superman is the one that's like, look, I can't speak for everybody, but I will. So let's hear dude out.
Right.
And then they decide to, try to see if he was on up and up, and they split up into teams. Oh, you know what? We missed something from the first issue, actually, I think.
What's that?
Because the very first thing after Pariah, or not very first, but one of the first things that happened after Pariah, we found Pariah, Oa gets attacked, and the Guardians get attacked. Because I totally forgot about that. No, wait, actually, that happened in this issue.
That happens in this issue.
Yes.
That's in this issue. So, the reason why the teams are split up is that the Monitor explains that, because of the wave of antimatter energy sweeping through the multiverse, he's established certain fork-like devices throughout the various realities designed to halt the antimatter wall. He's asking all these groups of superpowered folks to travel to each reality and activate each of the devices. Oh, you got to love the story trope that is invoked right there. Mm-hmm. Nobody trusts the Monitor, and as Roddykat said, Earth 2 Superman says, "Well, we have little choice, but we have to follow along."
Yep, and mind you, forks being the tuning kind, so that is a specific thing that will come up as we've already alluded to already. But let's see what happens here. Let's see. Yeah, so Pariah appears to Earth 1 Superman and Batman and then disappears. And then Kamandi, who I talked about earlier, gets saved by Earth 2 Superman and the crew. And I believe
Side note,
yes.
Why does everyone like Kamandi? I still don't understand the appeal of that character.
You're asking the wrong person.
It probably has something to do with him being a creation of Jack Kirby.
I understand that. I still can't,
Yeah. So if you're watching the video, you can see the machine in question, the henceforth machine that Kamandi is, that looks like a part of Galactus's head.
That's right.
AKA a giant tuning fork, as we come to find out.
Right, and shout out to George Perez art. If we haven't kind of extolled his virtues before, I have. But look at the backgrounds in these pages, man. Look at the details. Even though he's often doing layouts, and there's someone else doing finishes and inking, there's still just a ton of work in all these pages. It's not something we see nowadays.
Mm-hmm. That is true. That is very much true, and sometimes not done that well when it is tried in certain cases. But I think we finish up with that. Harbison goes back to the satellite where he sees a partially grown up, not unlike Spock in the Star Trek 3. Wait.
4.
Star Trek 4. Excuse me, I got that wrong. Yes, Star Trek 4. We see a rapidly aging Alexander Luthor from Earth 3, who is now who is probably like 7, 8. I don't know how old he is. They don't really say, but he's a young kid, because he was a baby when he showed up first time.
Right. We also get, before we wrap this issue, the Psycho Pirate. The Psycho Pirate suddenly disappearing and rematerializing in a darkened room where he's threatened by a deep voice commanding him to follow his every order, and that is a tease for the future antagonist of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris got tired of drawing, backgrounds.
You got to take a break where you can.
Yeah, and I think to finish this off, that we see with Psycho Pirate taking a powder, we also find out that Leela is thinking to portray the Monitor because she's been taken over, and when all of her separate beings came back together, the one that got taken over is filtered back into her. But we also find out that Harbinger is talking to somebody in the shadows, who we will find out who that is later on. But we also find out that the Monitor knows she's compromised. And he knows that she's going to do him harm at some point. And I believe that is it before we get into the next issue.
That's right.
Which is called Oblivion Amongst Us, issue 3. Excuse me. Oh Lord. So we start off with the Monitor, who tests young the young Earth 3 Luthor, who I will just go ahead and say that's going to be what he's going to be called henceforth. I think this is when we find out that he is both positive matter and negative matter, or we find out at some point that this is the case, but we'll just go ahead and get that out of the way. You see Earth 1 heroes start to come together. You see the Flash start popping in and out, and we will see more of him. Brainiac starts to see what's going on wherever he is, and he's like, "Okay, I gotta go because we're gonna because my life is in danger, such as it is." And he goes to seek out Lex Luthor's help. And this is when we start seeing a whole bunch of people just show up. Because we cut to 1944 Markovia, and Sergeant Rock is over there with his crew, and this is when the aforementioned haunted tank shows up.
Oh my gosh.
We also see the little known, at least to me, the little known crew known as the Losers, who also have had a movie, a version of which has had a movie, which I hear decent things about.
Yeah, it's based on the Andy Diggle Jock comic.
Mm-hmm. But a past version of the Losers, and we also see another Galactus-headed person that is with our group of heroes, who is also, as I call him, a bootleg Magneto, because that is pretty much his powers. But he also looks like a bootleg Galactus. So
Right.
picture that.
His new costume now is much better.
What's that dude's name? I forgot. What's
Dr. Polaris.
Dr.
Polaris.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I was like, okay, I remember seeing his name, but then I forgot to put it in my notes. Let's see. So yeah, they try to help the Markovians. Obviously, Geo-Force, who is with them, who is also Markovian, goes to help out his people. Blue Beetle's there also, and they try to do what they can. And soldiers, Sergeant Rock and company, and the Losers end up falling to the Animator Wall, and Blue Beetle ends up actually falling from the machine, from what he was trying to climb, and I believe that's the Animator Wall just starts sweeping across them.
Right.
For Blue Beetle, you guys might remember this, but when did DC buy Charlton Comics? It was around this time, wasn't it? Because I think that they were trying to integrate Blue Beetle more into the DC universe.
To Google we will go.
Right.
Oh yeah, while they're looking that up. Yeah, while they're looking that up, I was going to say, I forgot to say that they were being attacked by not only the antimatter wall, but some shadow figures that have been attacking all the separate teams that are coming, that have been put together. So each one of the machines that they are tasked to protect are being attacked by shadow creatures.
Right. And just as a footnote,
published.
most of Charlton's superhero characters were acquired in 1983 by DC Comics, where former Charlton editor Dick Giordano was then managing editor. So, they were basically bought in 83 and integrated into the DC main superhero line in 1985 in this story.
And just another random fact for those of you watching the show who don't remember this, but originally they offered the Charlton characters to Alan Moore, or Alan Moore wanted to take the Charlton characters and use them for Watchmen, but DC said no. So Alan Moore just basically used them as ciphers and recreated everyone. And now those guys, the Watchmen, are probably more famous than the Charlton characters.
By far.
Mm-hmm. Take that, DC. Now, so yeah, at the end of this,
don't forget the detour to the Old West.
Oh yeah, I'm getting to that part, because at the end of that whole thing with Blue Beetle and crew, this is when Solovar gets hurt and then he disappears, saving Kamandi. That's when that actually happens. And then we cut to the Old West, 1879, where we see Batlash getting thrown out of a bar, like Jazz from Fresh Prince style. Basically, because apparently this character is not necessarily up to no good, but he was messing with some lady's daughter. But that's beside the point. But he ends up meeting with the other Old West characters, including one Jonah Hex, and other folks that I don't know that too much about. But and then they end up meeting with the team of heroes from the satellite who end up being there, including Cyborg and one John Stewart, Green Lantern. And this is where there's a slight bit of a problematic thing, just slight, because as soon as they see they call them, and forgive me for using this term, spooks,
Mm.
um, and almost shoots them. But then everybody calms down, and and apparently a couple of the folks recognizes Green Lantern's outfit, John Stewart's Green Lantern outfit from what I can assume is um,
Hal Jordan.
yes, Hal Jordan's, because apparently they've met him before. So, pardon me.
Yeah, I definitely, when I reread that recently, I definitely flinched a little bit. And there, I mean, it's
Hmm.
there's that whole debate, right? Do you change the language or do you reprint it as it was?
Right.
And I definitely went, oh, really?
Yeah. So like we said last week, you kind of got to go into these. It's not great, but it's also you have to realize this is a different time. That doesn't make it better, but we're just saying it was different in a different time and place. So therefore, you have to go with what it is. And yeah, like Matt said, and like yeah, those I'm sure they had those decisions. I don't know if there's been a new copy since the one that I'm currently scrolling through. Of there probably is actually a new version of this.
Did it in like a regular trade?
Yeah. So maybe they've changed it, maybe not. I don't know. I doubt they. I kind of doubt they did. But anyway, everybody meets up, and they get attacked by the shadows also, and I believe they fight valiantly, but to no avail. And then we cut.
Basically, I
No,
was
okay.
about to say, so basically, just to wrap this issue,
Hmm.
the wave of antimatter hits all the Earth, yeah,
Hmm.
all the Earth periods at the same time. Um, the Legion of Superheroes in the 30th century also get hit by the antimatter wall, and we get to the end of the issue where one Harbinger returns,
Hmm.
and uh, basically we find out that Harbinger has, as a result of being compromised, has essentially switched sides for now.
Right. And one little note is Green Lantern's ring don't know doesn't work as he finds out in the midst of this issue, and that's because of what we found out in the past issue, or actually in the past
Earlier,
issue that got attacked. He doesn't know this yet.
right?
So yeah, so now we're at the end of that, and we come to issue 4, which is called "And Thus Shall the World Die." We start off with Supergirl and Batgirl talking. Well, Supergirl swooping off to talk to Batgirl. Batgirl is pretty much shook because of what's going on, and Supergirl being
She's a
Supergirl.
way bat crook. Right. She's definitely shook. It was
Yes.
very disconcerting to read that.
Yeah. So and they talk for a little while, and then something happens, and Supergirl goes to save a person in a plane that is heading towards the antimatter wall. And Batgirl's like, yeah, she's really a hero, and what's going on with me, that kind of thing. Then we cut to I don't know this character, Steve Dayton.
He's in the Titans. He's
Okay.
not
It's
a Titans character, but he's like a background character in a lot of Titans books.
Doom,
And a lot of
Doom Patrol.
right. That's what I was going to say. I think he was a Doom
Oh.
Patrol background character because he's intertwined in Beast Boy's origin.
He's
Gotcha.
sorry, Beast Boys. I think adopted father.
Right.
Mm. Okay. That's now okay. Now that name makes more sense because I think that's probably come up somewhere. But anyway, he and John Constantine are talking. Constantine's like, no, he's not. We're not gonna die. Don't worry about it. And then Swamp Things gets mentioned. Earth 6 dies. Pariah's still crying. Uh, as I have in my notes. Two characters, Lord Volt and Lady Quark, show up and try to save their daughter. That which doesn't happen. Do
I don't
you?
see no Ferengi, but anyway.
I know, right?
Wow.
Oh, thank you, bravo! I love it. Um, so Monitor continues his plan to make his new warrior, which he said he was going to do in the last issue, and he continues that. Who we found out is from Japan because we start to meet this person. She's not very nice. She is a doctor. She's not the light that people around her, wish she was. stop me if you know where I'm going with that. And by the
Right.
way, I will go ahead and say before this character even gets named, there is a version that ends up in the Arrowverse from a couple of seasons ago. And I don't know if she shows up in the Crisis version, but more than likely she probably does. So, like I said, I think there was a good bit of foresight going into the Arrowverse. Interestingly enough,
I still don't know why they introduced her, because I'm still kind of like, why? If you think about like what she did post this, and
right,
how people try to resurrect that character, it just never took off.
right, and they didn't really use her to that great effect during when she was on whatever. I think she was on Arrow. She was either on Arrow or Flash, one of them two. I can't remember, but I believe it was Flash. But regardless,
You got me.
yeah, I can't remember. It was a couple of seasons ago. But yeah, at the time it was like, well, what's the point in introducing her and they don't really do that much with her? Like she was on for a couple of episodes and then it's like, poop, gone. So, but apparently, if they used her in the event just now, then maybe that was for this. Who knows? But regardless, let's see where we at. Yeah, so this happens. She gets hit by a ray of light that was coming directly for her. Then we cut to apparently there's a footnote to Omega Man 60, Omega Man 26. Don't know actually why I'm putting these footnotes in here because they don't really. They were basically what was going on at the time, which apparently play into this stuff. Um, Earth 3 Luthor knows that Harbinger is going to kill the Monitor, but doesn't do anything. But also knows that okay, well, when she does do it, then it'll be helping the Monitor's plans basically. And Red Tornado gets snatched by the enemy.
Right.
Cut to Firestorm and Killer Frost meets up with Shining Knight at one of the Monitor machines. They fight the shadows that are there attacking, and then those shadows, self-same shadows, everywhere start fighting all of the other teams after they grow into one big shadow giant.
Right. They go Voltron and just become like this gigantic monster threatening the tuning fork.
Yes. And this is when we start getting introduced to the new Earth One, Dr. Light, which is the aforementioned lady, Dr. Lady. And I've already said the Arrowverse mentions, but whatever. Shows up to the protective machine. However, she doesn't understand a lick of English, and they don't understand a lick of Japanese. However, luckily Katana's there, and apparently Superman knows Japanese. So both of them can translate at the time can translate for her, because at the time she popped in, they thought she was attacking them, but she was actually protecting the machine, and everybody calmed down after Katana said, "Hey, I know Japanese," Wonder Woman tries to get help on Paradise Island, but doesn't get it. Pariah pops back up on the Monitor, cries some more, and apparently we find out that the Monitor not only knows Pariah, but is responsible for Pariah's situation. And he cries more, finding out that the fact that Monitor had to do with what's going on with him, what he's doing. Is that it? No, we got a little bit more. All the worlds are separated by vibration and time. As we find out, the Monitor's machines are supposed to merge them. As we find out, Harbinger finally kills the Monitor, and she falls. Somehow, miraculously, comes back later, though. Pariah cries again, and Earth 1 and 2 disappears, and so seemingly does everything.
Exactly.
That's ending the issue. Yes.
All right. So we jump straight into issue number 5, which is entitled Worlds in Limbo. So we find ourselves in the antimatter universe, and the antagonist, the dark antagonist, is messing around with both the Psycho Pirate and Red Tornado. The antagonist has Psycho Pirate use his emotion controlling abilities to keep the Flash in line, while also promising that he will soon have his own worlds to rule. We jump to back to the Monitor satellite, where a Harbinger comes back from killing the Monitor, and she's basically remorseful about it, but she doesn't remember anything about it. We jump to a recording of the Monitor explaining everything and explaining what what is now happening to safeguard the two Earths that we thought had been wiped out by the antimatter wave at the end of the previous issue. Basically, the Monitor, in just like some weird science, turned his body into an energy conduit, and his life essence shunted Earth 1 and Earth 2 into a netherworld, keeping them safe from the adversary's attack, at least for now.
Was it called the New 52?
Oh no!
I was about to say, it's almost as if he went beyond.
Exactly. So, in the Monitor's haste to preserve these two Earths and their respective universes, all time in those two Earths and their universes have become one. So they're slowly coming together to become one time. And we see the editorial mandate starting to coalesce. Alexander Luthor enters the chamber and hears the last of the Monitor's recorded speech.
Incursions! Excuse me.
Well, can I ask you a question? Is basically Pariah the pain that DC editors had to deal with combining the timelines together?
You know what?
Probably.
Let's go with that. Yeah.
Probably.
Everyone's just like, why did you have me do this? Why are you doing this to me? Why am I suffering so much? Yeah, that's, you know what. Also worth noting, longtime fans of Lex Luthor may or may not know that, yes, one, he has had hair. This version of Luthor we see has red hair, which we don't always associate with a Luthor, or specifically Lex Luthor. But yes, it does have red hair apparently. Which, wait, in Superman the movie did he have red hair? I don't remember. I know he had hair before he cut it off, but you know it doesn't matter. We'll find out later. And I believe that starts to turn the corner on this here thing.
Right, the timelines are intermingling, as I mentioned. We have dinosaurs and World War I era biplanes existing side by side with modern day metropolis skyscrapers and strange vessels from the far-flung future. Amazingly, Earth's populace is remaining relatively calm, and we've got reporters reporting on the situation. Let's see.
So one little before we go any further, when Luthor comes in and talks to Harbinger and the Monitor's dead, they give him a Star Trek II style burial by torpedoing him out of the satellite and utilizing him really quickly. No bagpipes involved.
Oh God, I remember that.
Yes. All right.
That's so funny.
But yeah, so then we get a meeting of all of the heroes at the satellite, including two stretchable people of note, as you can see in the picture here, and everybody else that has been involved so far. Harbinger, Luthor, and Pariah basically tried to explain what's going on to everybody, and I think this is when Earth 2 Superman actually speaks for everybody and says, look, we're going to do what we'll do. We're going to help. And then everybody goes back to Earth to because there are some people that were skeptical, and so they could see what was going on themselves.
Right. I just wanted to
makes a Death Star reference.
I was about to say, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm saying Elongated Man makes a Death Star reference.
Yes. I just wanted to mention that this 2-page splash is a pretty famous image from this book. It is cited by lots of artists as one of the things that possibly got them into becoming comic book artists.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is definitely a thing to see, which you can if you're watching the video right now. Haha. It's weirdly enough also reminds me of Secret Wars, but we're not gonna do that to this. All right, so yeah, everybody gathered. They get sent back to Earth to see what's going on. They help out where they can. Basically, a group of Lanterns go to Oa to check on the Guardians. They get attacked. After they see the Guardians in stasis. We see Rip Hunter and his crew. If you know Legends of Tomorrow, then you know that name. They're caught in a time storm. I guess we'll see them again at some point. The Bear Tribe from earlier shows up at Wayne Manor because Alfred calls Batman and a whole bunch of superheroes who apparently may or may not have known Bruce Wayne's identity, could potentially know that now because of this. I don't know, because they never really go into it, obviously. But it's like, everything is going on. Why even bother? Um, but yeah, heroes go out into the world and help.
Riddler is there.
Right, exactly. So I'm sitting here like, wait, all these people in Wayne Manor putting two and two together, and come on now. Psycho Pirate holds off. Oh yeah, so Psycho Pirate's thrall on Killer Frost wears off, and she threatens Firestorm, you know, with the turning his body blood cold or whatever the case may be. Whatever. The Flash, who happens to be in the chamber or wherever the enemy is, resists Psycho Pirate's power, and we see Red Tornado get turned into a storm and attack Earth.
Right.
Then we start seeing more visions of Earth 2 people seeing Earth 1 stuff and vice versa. They're fighting the storm. The heroes that are fighting the storm deal with Red Tornado, but not before Wildcat gets struck by lightning and gets his legs broken, which you would think that would be the least of his problems when getting struck by lightning. And might not walk again. People are dealing with that. So everybody decides, hey, we're going to help out. We're finally going to help out the Monitor. We're all on board. There's another Star Trek reference, beam me up. Yes, I am noting these things. The Animator Cloud is moving through the last of the 3 universes that they will need to save things, because Earth 1 and Earth 2 are already in the Netherverse, but there are 3 other universes that are still out there that they need. We also find out that the enemy could not get to Earth 1 and 2 because of the fact that Monitor shunted those 2 universes into the Beyond.
Right.
And let's see. Oh yeah, and in what also makes me think of Secret Wars, the enemy ends up, who is not named yet, ends up attacking the satellite with all of the heroes on board, and they try to scramble to get out of there or do whatever. And then we get in the final shots of this issue, the Flash gets all big and bold and it's like, hey, face me, whatever, what you gonna do? And the enemy ends up coming out from the shadows, and it is.
Hold on.
A robotic form of the Monitor. So, yeah.
Interesting design.
Yeah, that same. I almost called him. I assume. Well, we'll get into that. We'll get into that. We'll say that for some later. But yes, it is the Monitor. You can see the picture right there.
I think it's heavily influenced Darth Vader.
Yeah, you can say that. Like, if you're watching the video, you can see said image of dude, and that brings us into we're in issue 6, right?
Yep, issue 6 is the last issue of the show.
And it is called 3 Earths, 3 Deaths. Dun dun dun. This is where we find out that the Monitor is chastising Psycho Pirate, but then gives him what he wants. He amplifies his powers, Psycho Pirate's powers, and Psycho Pirate goes to what we come to find out, take over the emotions of not just 1 but 3 universe worth of people's emotions. Which ends up proving kind of difficult for him, for his puny human mind. The Flash is still there, by the way, so he's just kind of there. Flash gets ready to act to get the strength. The Monitor satellite is still crumbling because it got attacked last issue, and the heroes are scrambling to save themselves. Pariah disappears, but not before crying. If you're playing bingo. Harbinger keeps Luthor from sacrificing himself, and the satellite is destroyed. Cut to Earth 2, where we see Adam tending to Wildcat, putting them in bed, and being spied on by one character named Yolanda Montez, who apparently has special abilities because she's like outside, like hanging on the wall like Spider-Man.
Right.
And apparently see Infinity Inc. for that. I don't know who this character is, but we will find out.
She becomes Wildcat.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And she gets killed by Calypso.
Huh. Oh, really?
Okay, didn't know that.
Yeah, that was much later.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So Earth 1, Lex Luthor gets swooped up by Brainiac. Again, a reference to Superman 413. Earth cut to Earth X. A crew of heroes get sent there, and they see an image. Basically, in all of the different worlds that are still left, a big image of a harbinger gets cast into the antimatter storm, so everybody sees it. Meanwhile, they're trying to control crowds who have been taken over by Psychopirate. I keep wanting to say Psychomantis. That's a Metal Gear reference. That's not the same.
Yeah, just as a quick note, Earth X is an alternate world where World War II had been fought for more than 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a group of superheroes that are, some of them are based on characters of relatively modern myth, like Uncle Sam. There's a version of the Ray and a version of Hawkman and the Phantom Lady. So we get these characters trying to defend this Earth, and they're being manipulated by the Psycho Alpha Disco Beta Psychopirate, and they're basically resisting the heroes' attempts to stop them from running headlong into the antimatter wave.
Yeah, so they won't get their bodies turned into antimatter. And yes, if you know of that CWC animation, The Ray Freedom Fighters, that is one of the characters, the version of one of the characters. So we find out that Harbinger dives into wherever her body was when the satellite explodes, and we find out what happens, what she ends up doing, which is basically, wait, actually, I don't know if we do that or not. Let me get my notes. Where are my notes? There we go. So yeah, Dr. Light can now understand people for some strange reason. They think it's because of Harbinger and or something Luther did. And yeah, like I said, Psychopirate's trying to control 3 Earths worth of people. We cut to Earth 4, where they're trying to fight like Blue Beetle and them who are being controlled. Cut to Earth /1-2, where Aquaman is, basically everybody that is fighting folks that are not under control are also seeing Earth 1 and 2 images, or who are on Earth 1 and 1-2 are seeing images of the alternate Earth as it starts to kind of blend more into each other, incursion style. Apparently there's a person called Dolphin. I don't know who that is, but she was watching Black Ocean Master and Black Manta as Aquaman goes speeding off.
She was part of the Legion of Forgotten Heroes, and she becomes Aquaman's girlfriend for a time, and then she hooks up with Tempest Aqualad, and they have a kid.
Oh.
So we have our very own who's who in Matt Wayne. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cut to Earth S, where Supergirl, Changeling, aka Beast Boy, Black Canary, Wonder Woman, and crew run into that world's Marvel family, aka Shazam, aka Captain Marvel, and crew, and they end up fighting them. Cut back to Earth X, where the heroes that are not controlled, that were sent there, finally pick up on the fact that Psychomantis is the one that's controlling people's emotions. And we found out what happened to Harbinger, who uses the last of her power to basically shunt the other 3 Earths into the same netherverse as the Earths 1 and 2. So not only we have 5 universes in that, I was about to say New Universe, but that's a different company in that netherverse. But those 3 universes are now also starting to come together and blending together. And if they all come together in the same space and time and occupy it, they all will die. So, which means that they still haven't fixed the problem, but just made it worse. Or as bad. And finally, we get another Star Wars reference from Psychopirate involving billions of souls crying out all at once. And again, like I said, Harbinger user powers, and her and Leela, who is now reverted back to her Leela form, and Luthor is stuck on a floating rock out in space. Apparently, they can breathe in space or something. And we end up finding out there is a new Black Cat in town in the form of Yolanda Montez.
No, a new Wildcat.
Oh, new Wildcat. What did I say?
Black Cat.
Sorry. Well, she's dressed in black, but yes, Wildcat in the form of Yolanda Montez. My apologies. Back on Earth 2. And that, folks, is where we end this the first issue summary of Crisis on Infinite Earths. Thoughts?
Well, this is something that we were talking about just before going on the air. I was, we were discussing the story structure through the first 6 issues and sort of anticipating what's going to be happening over the second half of the series. Now, we have not yet really seen some of the famous events that occur in this miniseries that have really had lasting reverberations throughout DC's history or recent history, but we do see like the editorial ideas kind of taking shape in the forms of which universes are being put together into what is going to be the prime continuity. It's like a contrived way of saying, all right, we're going to grab from here, we're going to grab from here, we're going to grab from here, and we're putting them in this netherverse and watching them merge.
Right, so it's basically what's going on with Star Wars right now and this in their extended universe. Except without all the extra blending and seasoning or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah. So I forgot to ask this question last week, or I didn't think about it last week, but I don't know if it should apply, but I'm just going to put it out there. Clicks of the week.
Oh. It's a good question. At least from these first 6 issues.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I think trying to think of which one I enjoyed the most, because it definitely was a bit of a slog to get through the first issue or two.
For sure.
I don't know if issue 1 or 2 would be on my list, because it took me a while to get through them, and part of it is George Perez's layouts, which are dense, but part of it also is the non-decompressed style of storytelling that Marv Wolfman is using here. There's a lot of information on a lot of these pages, so there's a lot to go through as you're reading. So it takes a while. So I don't know if issue 1 would necessarily apply or would be a candidate for Click of the Week.
Mm-hmm.
While I'm kind of thinking aloud, does anyone else already know which one they might pick for Click of the Week?
I read Chip Zdarsky's new comicsology original Afterlift, so there's my Click of the Week.
You're cheating. You're supposed to use one of these 6.
Yeah, I was about to say, but yeah, but we'll.
No, I Agent 70. I agree with you. I mean, I probably say one of the more action oriented issues, probably like 4 or 5.
Right. That's what I'm leaning towards. I'm kind of scrolling through like, I don't know if I want to go through the first 2 issues. I think 4 or 5 might be a better candidate.
Right. I mean, it's definitely those are the ones where things start picking up and we finally start getting what's really going on and things just start stirring. Trying to figure out which one has less pariah crying.
Oh no. They all have it.
I mean, that's true.
I think I would choose issue number. What am I looking at here? I would probably choose issue number 5 because it's just so wild and wacky, and you see a little bit of everybody on every page. Literally a little bit of everybody on every page.
Right.
So yeah, I would go with 5, and you also get the cool reveal of the Monitor / who we will find out to be somebody else in the near future.
I think I might actually go with you on that one.
Or the Anti-Monitor. It's actually on the front page, the cover of issue 6.
Right. Yeah. See, I wasn't going to. I didn't want to mention it, but we keep that as a thing. But we know it's coming. We all know what's coming. So.
Right. I mean, it's literally revealed. I don't think it's actually mentioned in issue number 6 in the story, but it's on the cover that he's Anti-Monitor.
Right.
And to be honest, this actually helps me make more sense of the Kurt Busiek, George Perez, JLA Avengers story, because there are a lot of elements in that, and there's a character that is going to appear in this story later on, in the second half of this book, called Krona. And those 3 characters actually play roles in that JLA Avengers crossover. And I'm looking at it like, I don't care enough to Google these people. I might have Googled them when I first read them, and I just couldn't comprehend why they were important. But now I understand. After, and remember that crossover is from the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all starting to come back together again for me.
Yeah, we will more than likely we will probably have to. I don't think we can get our hands on that particular one, but we definitely will probably end up doing another crisis during one of these. Specifically, probably the next one. I would imagine if we go in order, but we'll talk about that at some point.
All right. I mean, we might skip back to Marvel. We might, like just to keep, to keep the variety.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to just stick to Marvel stories. I wanted to throw some DC in there. So.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And shout out to Binge Mode, the podcast put out by The Ringer. They're actually doing Saga next week.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
That's an undertaking.
They're actually doing Saga next week. So I don't know. I mean, I have, I think, the first like 2 or 3 trade paperbacks. I might read those just to, because I never read them. I just
Right.
bought them and kind of put them on.
Great.
Same here.
They're great.
Actually, we might want to put this one on the table also, since we're a little crafting maybe Fables.
That's a good one.
No, it's on the table. I've never read that.
Yeah, I think I have the first like 2 or 3 trades. So
I was about to say that's something that we would have to plan ahead for. That's not something that we're going to say. Yeah, this is what we're going to cover next week.
Right. Yeah.
So,
we're just kind of
spitballing. Not like crisis on it.
Yeah. Don't take anything. Don't take anything we're saying right here, right now, as hey, this is an absolute. We're just saying this is a possibility. No.
All right. While we're in quarantine and there's no new books out, we're coming up with content for our fans out there.
Right.
What Marvel series would you do? Would you do something like big and popular, like Civil War, or something more like obscure?
So we started with Kree Skrull War last week, and we may end up going back down that line with like Celestial Quest or something along that line, just to kind of because of Empire coming out.
Mm-hmm.
But so we might do something out of that and probably skip around to something else just to kind of break it up, and then whatever else comes out of DC.
Have you thought about doing the first Young Avengers 1 through 12?
Actually, yes, because that came up.
That right, it's actually related to what's happening in Empire.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be like once we finish Crisis, that might be what we turn back to.
Mm-hmm. I mean, could be some X-Men stuff coming up because I kind of wouldn't mind reading like Mutant Massacre or something like that over again.
Oh yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Especially if we did like I guess Mutant Massacre being like the first X-Men crossover story, and then maybe doing Fall of the Mutants.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to revisit some of those. They're some of my favorite, formative stories as a kid in high school. Yeah.
Inferno, or go back to like the New Mutants for the graphic novel.
Yes. I don't remember that very well. I'd have to, thank goodness for Marvel for finally springing for Marvel Unlimited, so that I would have access to read that again.
Extinction Agenda.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
Speaking of the Jim Lee, speaking of the Jim Lee Artist Edition, I'm willing to bet there's going to be pages from his books in the Extinction Agenda crossover in that.
I just got a tweet from IDW. I might send some of my scanned art to them. So I just got a tweet from them. I got to DM them.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Matt Wayne making things happen.
That's right. We'll be on the lookout for his contributions to these reprinted works.
Right.
Hey, if they scan it and they send me a free copy or 2 or 3.
There you go.
That's where they're going.
There you go. I can at least pick mine up, just drive into the city real quick. Mm-hmm. That's funny, man. But yeah, that's these are definitely thoughts for the near future, because we're still, at least New York State's going to be on pause for several more weeks. So we're going to have to come up with content while comics aren't being distributed, probably through mid-May.
Mm-hmm. So stay tuned for that. For any final thoughts about these first 6 issues from either of you?
No, I think this is the turning point, issue 6.
Yeah.
It's interesting that the midpoint is the turning point of the series.
Yeah, actually, we were talking about that earlier before the show. It was like, yeah, this is interesting enough. Not only the first big line-wide event, but also the first big event that kind of has a bit of structure to it. And I believe Matt, it was when you said it was like, yeah, this is kind of the one that sets off the next events that come after it, and all the events that come after it. So yeah, it's been kind of interesting to read this in full for sure, and you know we I feel like we definitely know where it goes, and we definitely know what comes out of it at the end of this. But getting to that point is kind of it's going to be an interesting journey.
Yeah,
It,
I
it,
definitely. Oh, go ahead.
all I was gonna say is it's really interesting to see what the DC universe looked at, how it looked at that time. Like I think people forget like Teen Titans was selling as well as X-Men.
Oh, I love and Matt, like I know you're not always with us, but I know that you're a fan of the show. I have always come out and said that pre-crisis DC is what I came up with, like especially New Teen Titans. I was a huge fan of the New Teen Titans, and right up until the Judas contract and the introduction of Nightwing, I was on board, but then for whatever reason, it was probably related to Crisis, and I just blocked it out of my mind. I jumped, I was just not connected to what was happening in DC at all. It didn't resemble what I knew. It also didn't help that George Perez was not on art at that time. He had transitioned off the book. That's what I remember. Pre-crisis continuity is what I remember for the new Teen Titans, at the very least. So, I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's what I remember. And, seeing now, this is, I think, pretty important for my, filling in a particular blank in my comic book history, reading Crisis. And I appreciate that this is actually, that one small bit of silver lining with regard to the COVID-19, the pandemic and quarantine, is that it's forcing, or maybe not forcing, but definitely part forcing and part giving me the opportunity to read something like this that, given our regular schedule of new books every week, I probably wouldn't have time to do.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So yeah, it's in the midst of everything, we got something good out of it. Because we've been saying for all this time, like, at some point we're gonna go back and read the stuff, but we never do because we always got new books to read. So,
we're busy trying to catch up. We can only get like 5 or 6 at a time. Sometimes we get lucky and we can squeeze in 8 or 9.
Yeah.
Matt's always joking with me. He's like, we always read at least 5. That's probably it,
Yeah. I would make a recommendation for you guys, like, for next week, and after you read the second half and talk about it, is I would recommend, and I don't know if you have time or whether you do it on Twitter, is just talk about like what happened to the DC universe after Crisis, right? You had Superman of Steel, you had Batman year 1 and 2, and you had all these other things that happened, like Justice League International, the whole Keith Giffen, Kevin McGuire run,
one
right?
punch.
Right. So you had all these cool things that happened after the Crisis, and obviously there are a lot of bad things that happened after. But I think that there's an epilogue episode that you guys can talk about.
Yeah, we'll have to think about that for sure.
Definitely.
I mean, like both of our DC knowledge is still kind of spotty even after that point. Like, I mean, probably mine's probably more than you guys's, but yeah, we could probably definitely put some.
Think about Wally West became Flash.
Right. And I was about to say, this is a topic we're probably definitely going to broach. We're hoping to get PCN_dirt to escape from his family, the clutches of his family, for a time next week, to contribute to the second half of our Crisis on Infinite Earths 2-part episode. So, we will probably broach the topic with him because his DC history is a lot stronger than either mine or Roddykat's.
Mm-hmm. Well, with that, if there be nothing else to say about that, I guess we can get to the last ad read of the night.
And we've gone a long time tonight, so our last ad read of the night is for Amazon. Keep our podcast free by shopping at Amazon. Visit cspn.us, then click the Keep Our Podcast Free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down and click on the Amazon link to shop. Purchase items from Amazon as you normally would, whether it's books, music, electronics, jewelry, apparel, or action figures like Agent_70. For every purchase made on Amazon through our link, Amazon sends the CSPN a payment that helps us keep the Comic Book Chronicles podcast free for our listeners at no extra cost to you. Amazon.com through cspn.us. Do it today.
And as we come to the end of this here Comic Book Chronicles podcast, we'd like to thank each and every one of you all for coming out. And we're just going to give you a nice little shout to the next issue's cover of Crisis on Infinite Earth issue 7. It's a very, very classic cover. If you're seeing here on the video, if you're not seeing here, it is Superman holding a dead Supergirl.
Spoiler alert!
Yeah. But
for a series that's like 30 years old, but okay.
Exactly. And with
Sorry.
Yeah, no, right. Sorry, not sorry, I guess, at that point. But yes, until next week, I have been Roddykat. You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can also find me at Need on Twitter. You can also find me at CBCaps on Instagram. Agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram. Matt Wang 97 on Twitter. Matt, is there any other places you want to shout out?
I'm on Instagram too. Same handle.
That is also correct, yeah. I didn't know if you wanted to put that out there or not, but I figured I'd ask.
That's fine.
Okay.
They'll figure it out.
Indeed. PCN_dirt on Twitter, PopCultureNet on Twitter, PopCultureNetwork.com, and all of his umbrella sites therein. And also Bytes, the Vine replacement, under Comic Book Reviews, no vowels. Tim, DOGD98, the Osiris of this ish, on Twitter. CB Cron on Twitter. The Click Nation on Twitter. That's DKLQNATION, theclicknation.com. And also, of course, Comic Book Resources, where he's over there writing his face off. Go check out that man's stuff. Give him some links and clicks and all that sort of stuff. I'm not sure what he's been writing on lately, but maybe it's something else. We don't even know. You can find this here podcast on the Cold Slither Podcast Network. That's CSPN.us.
Do it today.
You can also find us at their podcast for the place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, Spotify, or the Cold Slither Podcast Network's SoundCloud page. We'll be back next week with part 2 of this here, Crisis on Infinite Earths podcast, part thing, and more news and more whatevers, and maybe me with new vocals. We don't even know. The world's a mystery. Woo! Anyway, this has been Comic Book Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. One.
I love it when a plan comes together.